Open up the City Council meeting, and this is Redevelopment Successor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority, regular meeting agenda, Wednesday, September 19th, and it's a little after 6:37. We have roll call, please.
Mayor Pacheco,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Escobar,
Here.
Councilmember Hodge,
Here.
Councilmember Real is absent, Councilmember Hurtado is absent. We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Figueroa, could you lead us in the
Ready, begin.
Mr. Dale?
City of Calexico mission statement. Together,
We pledge to provide effective and efficient services in a courteous and respectful manner to improve the quality of life for all in our unique border community. Viva Calexico.
We have Mr. Bañales.
I think he's here.
Okay, we'll
Dispense.
dispense with the invocations. All righty, we can sit down. Thank you. Read the announcements there, City Clerk.
These proceedings may be viewed on the City of Calexico website at www.calexico.ca.gov the Friday following the City Council meeting. Mayor Pacheco will have community hours to hear the concerns of the citizens the fourth Wednesday of the month from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Fernando Nene Torres Council Chambers.
Thank you. We have a couple of presentations today. First one is a proclamation. We have that in front of us, and it's for support of Attendance Awareness Month. And this is for the Calexico Unified School District. We're going to have to, why don't you be,
I'll do reals if you want me to.
Do you want me to read Marita?
okay, you can take, Ms. Rosales,
Okay.
and Mr. Hodge, you take double up on Mr.
Real.
Okay. Proclamation for Attendance Awareness Month. Whereas good attendance is essential to student achievement and graduation, we are committed to dedicating our resources and attention to reducing chronic absenteeism rates, with a focus starting as early as pre-kinder and kindergarten, and
Whereas chronic absence, missing 10% or more of school for any reason, including excused and unexcused absences, or just 2 of 3 days a month, is a proven predictor of academic trouble and dropout rates. And whereas chronic absence is now a required reporting metric under the federal Every Student Succeeds Act. And whereas improving attendance and reducing chronic absence takes commitment, collaboration, and tailored approaches to particular challenges and strengths in each community. And
Whereas chronic absence predicts lower third grade reading proficiency, course failure, and eventual dropout, it weakens our communities and our local economy. And whereas the impact of chronic absence hits students in low-income communities and children of color particularly hard, and if they don't have the resources to make up for lost time in the classroom and are more likely to face systemic barriers to getting to school, such as unreliable transportation, lack of access to health care, unstable or unaffordable housing. And whereas attendance gaps among groups of students often turn into achievement gaps that undermine student success, chronic absence particularly exacerbates the achievement gap that separates students in low-income communities from their peers. Since the students from low-income communities are both more likely to be chronically absent and more likely to be affected academically by missing school, and whereas absenteeism also undermines efforts to improve struggling schools, since it's hard to measure improvement in classroom instruction if students are not in class to benefit from them, and whereas schools and community partners can reach out more frequently to absent students to determine what barriers they face to attending school and what would help them attend more regularly, and whereas healthcare providers can share the importance of school attendance with families and can offer proactive, preventive care to reduce absences, and
Whereas schools and districts must do more to track, calculate, and share the data on how many students are chronically absent so that we can see the attendance gaps and can deliver the right interventions to the right students. And whereas all students, even those who show up regularly, are affected by chronic absence because teachers must spend time reviewing for students who missed lessons. And whereas chronic absence can be significantly reduced when schools, families, and communities work together to monitor and promote good attendance and address hurdles that keep children from getting to school. And
Therefore, be it resolved that I, Louis Pacheco, Mayor of the City of Proclaim our city, will stand with the nation in recognizing September as Attendance Awareness Month. We hereby commit to focus on reducing chronic absenteeism to give all children an equitable opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive academically, emotional, and socially. In witness whereof, I hereto affix my signature and official seal of the City of Calexico on the 19th day of September. Congratulations, Ms. Armendariz. Were you going to accept this? You guys want to come down and take a photo? Go ahead. A lot of whereas. Whereas. Another presentation. Another speaker, Mr. Wally Limburger, Imperial Valley Coalition, regarding fair sharing of water. Mr. Limburger? Either one.
Good evening, honorable council members, city staff, and general public. I do appreciate this opportunity to speak this evening on probably one of the most important subjects since the IID began delivering water into this region. Before you is a package of information, and I've looked over your agenda, deals with Imperial Valley's Coalition for Fair Sharing of Water. And can everybody hear me fine in the audience? Everybody can hear fine. There's a couple of people that I would like to have address this governing body before I give my presentation. One is former IID director Jean-Pierre Menville, and another is a school teacher from El Centro, Heidi Rodriguez. Mr. Menville.
Good evening, council members. Jean-Pierre Menville, 897 West Ross Road, El Centro. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to you this evening. I'm an agricultural landowner, retired farmer, former IID director, and the issue before you this evening, brought here by Mr. Limegruber and the Coalition for Fair Sharing of Water, is very important to the Imperial Valley. The landowners are trying through a court proceeding to get control of the irrigation water here in the valley and basically take it away from the Imperial Irrigation District. And Calexico being one of the largest towns here in the Imperial Valley, it's very important that your constituents and residents be taken care of, that you continue to receive your water from the Imperial Irrigation District and not have to get your water from some other entity, which would create a lot of turmoil and chaos. So it's, you can read the resolution. I'm speaking here as a landowner. The landowners have kind of gotten together and said that this is what they want. It's not fair to the residents of the Imperial Valley. As a former IID director, I understand how it is important that the residents and voters also of the Imperial Valley be properly taken care of through the Imperial Irrigation District. District's been around for about 110 years almost. It's very important they stay intact and they stay in control of the irrigation water. Farming, water for farming is for growing crops, which is about a $2 billion industry, but the 170,000 people that live here in the Imperial Valley and help with the economic viability of the valley is very important that they are taken care of. And Calexico is one of the largest cities here in the Imperial Valley, and it's very important that you have your attorney look at this resolution and possibly give your support to the amicus brief, which will help the Imperial Irrigation District in this lawsuit. So thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, council members, audience. My name is Heidi Rodriguez, and I'm a teacher in El Centro, California, also a governor appointee to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And my big concern is I'm actually a native of Calexico, but I live in El Centro now. But I'm thinking about all of the Imperial Valley as I have spoken out about supporting IID in this appeal against Mike Abadi, because it's a slippery slope. What would happen is if our water, which is now in public trust, ends up in private hands, we could become like Palo Verde. And if you're not familiar with what has happened there under the way the water's being sold to Los Angeles, farmers who own the property rights are able to just sit back and make millions of dollars while the city is basically drying up. People have to move. What used to be a board like the IID has now become a water board, right, with the landowners owning the, getting a seat at the table. Something like this would put us like in South Africa during apartheid, right, where a minority controls a majority. And as council members, you represent the city, and you want your city to have access to water, whether it's domestic, industrial. So I really hope that you consider Mr. Leingruber's and the Ivy Coalition for Fair Water Sharing, and join. Yesterday, El Centro City Council passed a 5-0 resolution in supporting this amicus brief. So on behalf of teachers, on behalf of my students, all of the students of the Imperial Valley, it would be absolutely devastating for people to have to leave here to go find a life someplace else. We're desert, and if we don't have water, we'll all dry up. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, as we've gone before other city councils throughout Imperial County, and we presented the information on why it's important to ID maintain this water in trust to the Imperial Irrigation District and not to a handful of individuals, similar to what it was prior to the IID's formation in 1911. The California Development Company had managed the water that came into this valley, but because of a lot of unforeseen events, the mutual water districts that had water could not maintain the service properly. And so the founding fathers decided the Imperial Irrigation District needed to be started, and bonds were sold. Every property owner, every person that owned property in this valley paid a district tax to form this IID so we could make sure that water, and then later on in years, the power that IID does manage now is affordable to every resident, every user, that uses the water reasonable and beneficial. Now, coming back to why this friend of the court has started, I want to draw this council member's attention. This legal action was only started by one person. One person said the IID's equitable distribution plan was unlawful. And by the way, that person, Michael Abadi, voted twice on the equitable distribution plan approving this in the event that there was ever a shortage on the river, that the IID had the wherewithal to give water to the best of the ability to this entire region. One person. But that wouldn't have been so bad, but it went further, it went beyond that. It went before a judge, a local Imperial County judge, Judge Anderholt, and Judge Anderholt ruled, and I would ask every person to please take time to read this 8-page decision statement that Judge Anderholt put out. He actually cites a Bryant Yellen case, a footnote, nevertheless, footnote number 23, which says water is a constitutional protected property right. Well, if we look at the Yellen case and we begin to read, what does that footnote say? And in fact, it's available. I can make it available to anyone who would request of this. But let's look at the court reporter. The syllabus constitutes the footnotes, no part of the opinion of the court, but has been prepared by the reporter of decisions for the convenience of the reader. A footnote. And the footnote is quoted in the Bryant Yellen case simply tells us that the water is indeed appurtenant to the ground, to the land, to continued service by the district. Doesn't ever give ownership to anyone. The Bryant Yellen case, footnote number 23. But let's even go further and look at what the 50-page brief that IID's attorneys filed. And this is their own statement. The trial court's decision is so legally unsound that it must be reversed and vacated. And now you understand why we're having this friend of the court filed along the side of IID. This decision could impact this entire region, not only here in Southern California, but every water district in the state of California. And for the past 2 months, we've been doing this information campaign, bringing awareness to different civic groups, different councils. The County Board of Supervisors heard this presentation. And I've just left a draft resolution with your city manager, city attorney, that I would like this council to consider at a future date adopting a resolution that Calexico would come along the side of Imperial Irrigation District and sign on as a friend of the court. And the outside law firm that's doing this is named David Osias. And you understand, because this is a friend of the court, IID could not have any input into this decision, nor could IID have any money put into this decision. And there's a recommended amount. There is no requirement to have any financial obligation into this. The council's support is mainly what we're looking for. However, if the city does have a small financial contribution, that would not be turned away. But I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Limegruber, could you briefly discuss the potential shortages on the Colorado River? Because I've discussed here in these chambers the current drought, and I don't think a lot of people really understand. They feel like there's infinite amount of water for the Imperial Valley, and that's not really the case. Is that true?
That is absolutely correct. The hydrology on the Colorado River has become so serious. We know that lower basin states, the state of Arizona, even Mexico could encounter cutbacks as early as 2020. We think that we'll be able to make it through the 19 timeframe. A lot of water is released down through Lake Powell. The Lake Mead now is just currently right above the drought plan that they would have to implement at 1075. And so, yes, Imperial Irrigation District has the largest apportionment of Colorado River water, and they have 2.6 million acre feet. That is a protected, perfected right. However, Imperial Irrigation District, through all of the previous agreements, have had to give up approximately 500,000 acre feet. It started off what we call the Metropolitan 1 water transfer. And then in the quantification settlement agreement in 2003, and I remember that very well, myself, John Pierre Menville, he was on the IED board, I was on the county board of supervisors, and we worked through all of that transfer process, trying to make sure that this region was protected, that if there was, cutbacks, it would be done equitably. And because California then had to live within our 4.4 million acre feet, we wanted to make sure that at least this region, this part of Imperial Valley, which is farming is so important. I was a farmer for 28 years before I, went onto the county board, and that job took full time. So I divested myself of the farming interest, still own my property, still know how important it is, still know how important it is that farmers get their apportionment of Colorado River water to grow these crops that feed us every single day. Any other questions this morning? This evening, excuse me.
And
Thank you so much.
How long do you expect litigation to continue?
Okay, the front of the court will be filed in December of 2018, and there's going to be probably many water districts throughout California. Now your counsel will tell you not all of them are going to be red, but I can assure you when this front of the court is dropped along the side of IID, the three-member judge, Fourth Court of Appeals, is going to look highly favorable on the front of the court. They're going to take and glean the information that's in there because there's going to be substantial information. David Osias had worked for Imperial Irrigation District for many, many years. He had to be clear that there was no conflicts on his part before he even could take this task on. And so we researched it very, very well. I said we don't want to repeat what IED has already said in their 50-page brief, and he assured me that it's going to be information that will come along the side of IED and bolster their arguments as they defend the water rights for all of us.
Well, thank you for your presentation, and we'll make sure that we do the right thing later on down the road for you guys.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Pierre, nice seeing you. One more presentation, and that's by Dan Masiello, companies regarding water and wastewater financing opportunities, financing water and wastewater CIP, minimizing potential rate increase. Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the City Council, City staff. Before we get into that, and while the presentation is loaded up, I'll just quickly report that last Thursday there was a bond sale that the city participated in. I don't know if you're aware of it. The Imperial County Transportation Commission, through its financing authority, the Imperial County Local Transportation Authority, issued bonds against the Measure D sales tax that the localities in the county share in. The result was about a $16.5 million bond issue. The participants were the cities of Calexico, Holtville, and Calipatria, but Calexico is by far the largest participant at about $12.23 million, plus a premium. Those bonds generated new funding for street projects of $12,772,000. These funds will primarily be used to on the street overlay project that's slated to run through the next several years. About $11.5 million will be dedicated to that, and about $1.5 million will go to help pay for the widening and realignment of the 2nd Street Bridge. In terms of the sale process itself, last Wednesday, there was a pre-pricing call with the underwriter, and they initially proposed a structure that we at Cosmont felt was a little expensive for the city, and we asked for some changes, which resulted in an additional $175,000 of monies, of bond proceeds being generated at the same payment level, and also reduced the interest rate that was proposed from a 3.82% to about a 3.70%, so 12 full basis point reduction. The bonds achieved a rating of A, which is a very good rating, and that qualified this bond issue for bond insurance, which further reduced the costs. And the bonds will close next week, so congratulations on a successful bond sale. I'm sure everybody will be happy to be able to see some new streets around town. Moving on to the main topic of the evening. As mentioned, there are some options that I'd like to present to the council that were discussed previously with the Finance Commission. We've been working with city staff on ways to reduce the pending and potential rate increases to both the water and wastewater systems, as you might be aware. We at KTS have identified some options for your ultimate consideration. This won't be taking place tonight. This is just a brief overview that I'd like to briefly go over here tonight. This presentation is sort of a preview of the action items that are anticipated to be brought back to council in the not too distant future. So by way of background, if you can, perfect executive summary, the first thing we identified is the fact that there is an outstanding bond issue that was issued in 2007 for the water system that is in the money, as we say, to be refinanced for savings, much like refinancing a mortgage to lower your payment. The city has an adopted capital improvement program for the water system that calls for expenditures of about $14.8 million through 2023. It also has a CIP for the wastewater system that calls for expenditures on the wastewater plant and treatment of about $38.4 million through 2023. Also, both systems do in fact have substantial reserves, which is a positive, that do need to be deployed, of about $14.5 million on the water and $20.5 million on the wastewater. As you are all aware, there was a recent rate study that was presented in the spring and considered in June that was ultimately not adopted. I think one of the main reasons was the results of that study called for some dramatic rate increases, as well as drastically spending down the cash reserves.
Mr. Masil, can I just stop you real quick?
Yes,
I just want to clarify, because there's $34 million in these accounts, and we have some people that do come up here sometimes, and ex-council members, and a lot of people throw that number around. You guys have like $40 million in certain accounts. So just so the people that are listening understand that those are enterprise funds, and they can be used for general fund purposes. And just for the people that maybe a lot of people that are here know that, maybe they don't, but just to clarify that, I think it's important so that the public know that these monies are allocated for enterprise and that only, and so that's important for people to know. So I just wanted to make sure that when you touch that amount, people say, "What do you mean? There's $34 million in the
Absolutely,
coffer?"
Councilmember Real.
We're rich.
It's an excellent point. Those monies are restricted to use within the enterprise systems. There's pretty strict state laws regarding that. Your finance director can speak in more detail to that.
Yeah, just basically because there is people that come up here, even like I said, ex-council members that want to. I mean, you would figure if you're here 4 years, you should know that those monies can't be used for certain things, but for some reason they just keep saying it, and people unfortunately sometimes believe it. So
right, and as you're well aware, the systems do have substantial amounts of deferred maintenance. Those amounts have been built in and accumulating from the current rate structure and do need to be deployed within the system. So it's an excellent point. They are restricted and can't be used to buy the groceries, so to speak. So recognizing that there are adopted capital improvement plans in place that this council has previously approved, and that the rate study was presenting a dramatic increase in rates that was unpopular, to say the least, with the public and pretty unpalatable. We went to work to try and see if there's something we could figure out to help lessen that. So this presentation will present a few options for future consideration, kind of update the council what we're seeing in order to achieve all the above: fund the capital improvement program, keep rate increases low, and have an appropriate level of reserves. So next page, please. So far, what we've done and what has happened is that the staff was presented with the refunding opportunity, and we at KTS verified the fact that these 2007 bonds are in fact candidate for refinancing that would produce substantial savings, meaning simply that to replace one bond issue with a new bond issue and lower the payment, nothing else changes, same amount of terms, no out-of-pocket expenses, and so that's a positive thing. So we took it a step further, and while we were analyzing that potential refunding, we looked overall holistically at the operations of the both systems with the CIP requirements and the fact that there was an anticipated rate increase coming. And we took our preliminary findings to the Economic Development and Finance Commission, what we'll just call it Commission from here on out, last month on August 21st, and we explained to the Commission at the time that we see some opportunities, one of which is the potential to realize savings by refinancing these outstanding bonds, but also there might be some potential to dramatically reduce the rate increase projections if we approach the paying for the CIP and future increases by using a combination of drawing down reserves, issuing a refunding bond to generate savings, but also considering the issuance of some new bonds to help pay the cost of the CIP.
Preliminary rate, sorry for interrupting. Preliminary rate increase of 2% for how long?
Did I say that yet?
Maybe I'm jumping the gun here.
I think you're jumping ahead a little bit.
I apologize.
You're
Go on.
stealing my thunder, Councilman.
Sorry. I'm excited.
So
That's the icing on the cake, Mr. Escobar.
So after much explanation, and you were here that night, Councilmember Escobar, explained the process to the commission, the thought process behind it, and I see some commission members in the audience. The commission agreed that it would be a good idea to pursue the 2007 refunding, and that staff should work towards making that happen and bring it to this council when it was ready. And as a part of that process, since it would be working with other finance professionals, including myself, so a bond underwriter, bond lawyers, since we had the brain trust in place, let's take a look at some other opportunities to potentially reduce the potential rate increases. So with that, we got in touch with the city's rate consultant, Will Dan, and have been working with them over the last several weeks. And next slide, please. We came up with a couple of really interesting options. So further analyzing that idea that was presented to the Finance Commission, or the Commission last month, the results of running the analysis was that, well, the original plan, was, as you all know, to have a rate increase of about 5% next year and then 4.5% over the next several years, and a massive drawdown of reserves that would have put the reserves at what I would consider a dangerous level of only about a month's worth of operating cash on hand. So that wasn't something we felt was really where the city would want to be. So we tried to look at some other options, and what we had initially presented as an idea to the commission when we ran the analysis, of course, the refinancing of the 2007 bonds for savings, drawing down the reserves to what we would consider an appropriate level and retain a prudent reserve of about 6 months worth of operating cash on hand, and issuing new bonds to fund the CIP as well. So the spend down of the reserves would be in part applied to the CIP, as well as use the balance that was outstanding of costs could be funded with issuing of new bonds. And so the initial higher level results showed the following: that it would retain a prudent amount of reserves, increase the amount, lower the rates that would be needed, and spread out the payment of that CIP over time. So after discussing this with the commission and receiving their nod of approval, we're on page 5 now, this is what we came up with. So as I mentioned, the refunding of the 2007 bonds, combination of reserves to finance the CIP and new bonds, and the results were to maintain the target. We were able to maintain the target of about a 6 months worth of operating cash on hand, which we don't think we would not advise to go below that if possible. The results would also maintain a healthy debt service coverage level. The current outstanding bonds have a requirement of 1.1 times, meaning that for every $1 in debt service that you have to pay, you need to have $1.10 available to pay that debt service. The current requirements of the bond markets are closer to 1.25 times. This approach would result in about a 1.5 times level of coverage, which is very healthy and a very strong credit positive. However, this approach actually front-loaded the debt service payments, meaning that for the next 20 years there'd be higher payments, and then the remaining 10 years the payments would drop, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily preferable when you're operating a business much like the water utility. This does achieve the goal of spreading the cost of the CIP out over time, which is more equitable instead of paying for the entirety of the costs in just a short period of time where only a few ratepayers are bearing that cost. Financing it in this manner will spread out those costs over 30 years. And as Councilmember Escobar pointed out, much to our surprise and much to our happiness as well, this results in a rate increase of only about 2% going forward. Now, this is preliminary, and Will Dan will be making a presentation of these results. I think it's going to be the first council meeting next month, so I don't want to steal their thunder. We're in communication with them. They're aware I'm going to be delivering this message tonight. But those projected rate increases incorporate an approach that is similar to this.
But we don't have, I mean, a ballpark on if it's for 5 years, for 10 years, moving forward.
Every year.
It's every year.
2% going forward. I think in the out years, they start looking at about 2.5%, something after 5 years, which is beyond the window of what you can approve anyway. So, and again, Will Dan will give you more precise details, but this is pretty much going forward. This would dramatically reduce the projected rate increases. Now, looking at that with that front-loaded structure and wanting to be really perfect, so the next page, wanted to see if we can do a little bit better. And so what we would actually see as our current recommendation at the moment that we'll eventually, we're going to continue to work on. Instead of using the drawdown of reserves to pay for part of the CIP, we said, what if we use those reserves to redeem those 2007 bonds and pay those off, and then use new bonds to finance most of the CIP? And the results were even better. It still achieves an appropriate level of reserves of about 6 months, but it creates a more level debt payment structure over the life of the bonds over the next 30 years. And so while the little bit of refunding bonds that would be left outstanding and the capital improvement, the new bonds, when you combine them, you have about the same payment every year going forward, which puts a little less stress on rates, a little less, increases the coverage a little bit more. It still works out to be about a 2% rate increase going forward. It was, we're talking decimal places of difference, but it is a little bit more positive to go about it this way versus having that front-loaded structure. The difference being when you pay something off a little quicker, the interest cost over the life to pay it off with a front-loaded structure is a little lower by a couple of percent, meaning that, the absolute dollar spent over time would be a little bit less because you're paying off quicker, just like if you made higher payments on your car. But the trade-off is to have that same payment spread out over time, results in predictable budgeting, and it leaves room for other costs to fill in that void that the system will experience. So, next page, please. We also took a look at the wastewater system because, as you might know, the plan always was to have some sort of financing involved with the wastewater. And since we were looking at the water, it's just a natural to take a look at the wastewater. Excuse me. So working with Will Dan still, we fine-tuned the original projections and applied some financing assumptions that are very similar to what we just discussed in water, trying to find out what the proper combination of financing of new bonds and the use of reserves would be. And those current projections would include the full funding of the capital improvement plan for the wastewater with a combination of the reserves and bond financing, a level bond payment structure, which the wastewater system has no debt outstanding anymore against it, so the new structure would be whatever we set it at, and standard operating procedure would be the same payments every year, much like your mortgage. And those rate increases are now calculated also to be about 2% going forward. Mr. Mayor, did you have something to say?
That's great news.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy to be presenting this sort of news. And again, Will Dan will be here to make their formal presentation. They are your rate consultant. We are working in concert with them at Mr. Dale's direction because there is a balance of financing and current expenditures and future rate projections and future operating cost increases that have to be considered. So the engineering firm is working on the operating cost side of things, and we're working on the bond issue side of things or the financing side of things. And when we worked together, we were able to come up with that sort of structure. So last page here, basically in summary, we see a pretty good opportunity here to take advantage of the current low interest rates in a way that can reduce the projected rate increases you've previously heard about for both utility systems of the city. Paying for the water and wastewater capital improvement programs with a properly balanced combination, in this case of bond refunding for the water or more of a redemption, actually, some new financing and spending down the reserves, which was what they're there for, to be deployed for capital projects, among other things, are all projected to lessen the impact of the previous levels of rate increases you heard. So staff is currently working with a team of finance professionals, including us here at KTS, to bring a financing package. The plan, for consideration, the plan is, if we can, if there's going to be a meeting later this month, we'd like to kind of vet what we come up with through the Economic Development and Finance Commission first, to explain this to them in greater detail, which some of them are hearing this already tonight, though. And then we'll see what's ready to be presented to the council for actual action, consideration for action, potentially in concert with the Wildan presentation, maybe at the council meeting after that. There'll be some T's to cross and I's to dot, as you can appreciate. Putting together a full bond authorization and approach will take some time. We have to make sure we do it right, but that's the plan going forward. And
Thank you.
be happy to entertain any questions if there are any. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time.
It's good news, very good news.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Dan.
All right.
Public comments?
This is the time for the public to address the city council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. If the item you wish to comment on is on the consent item, please comment now. The city council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. If the item you wish to comment on is a public portion of the agenda, we will take your comment when we get to the item on the agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council.
Yeah, I'd also just like to highlight too again that this is a time to make comments on any consent calendar items. So if you do have want to speak on item 5, 6, or 7, this will be the time to speak. And just to remind the audience to not make any personal or slanderous remarks. Refer your comments to city council as a whole, and avoid making any personal attacks on either any members of the public or any members of the city council. Thank you.
First one?
Kim?
Andrew Treviso with Mount Signal 4H. He will be making a presentation to the Calexico Fire Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Honorable members of the City Council, Captain Favela and firefighters, City Administrators and staff, and citizens of Calexico. My name is Andrew Treviso. I am 10 years old. I am a member of Mount Signal 4-H. 4-H is a national program that encourages kids to learn, be leaders, and serve their community. This is my 5th year in Mount Signal 4-H. I have learned about photography, mini garden, dairy, cows, and rabbits. I have built with Legos of a way of combining art and engineering. 4-H encourages kids to use their head, hands, and heart for the service of the community. Since I have always liked firefighters, I met with Captain Favela in June and asked his permission to create the Calexico Firefighter emblem using Legos. It took me about 4 months to complete it. Now I am happy to present you with my 4-H project. I hope kids will enjoy seeing it for October Fire Prevention Month. I hope that when the students see the emblem made with Legos, they will think about doing something for the community. Thank you for your opportunity to do this for my city.
Wow.
Excellent presentation.
4-month project.
Wow.
Summer. Do you have a place for that, Chief? Oh, I know for sure. Well, we want to thank the parents. I'm sure they helped out a little. Job well done, and if it's gonna take time, it's a professional job.
I think he's gonna start getting some requests.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like nice. If I send you my picture, can you make me more like? That's
The
gonna be a
glass
lot of
will-
Legos.
The glass will break, Mandy.
Wow, that's really nice.
Good job. Excellent.
Are they glued together at some point? Or they're not glued,
They just fit-
but
fit in.
they're not glued. Okay. Wow, it's beautiful.
Thank you. Tremendous job.
I have one question. Mount Signal 4-H is the closest one to Calexico, correct?
There's one in Calexico, I think.
There is a 4-H in Calexico now. Okay.
Mount Signal, there wasn't one in Calexico.
Okay. Yeah, I believe a few years ago they started one, and I'm not sure the actual name of it. Do you guys know the name of it? No. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse Garcia?
He deserves at least a ride on the fire engine, right? I mean, at the very least, around town or something. That's
Santa for the car.
yeah, maybe with Santa, the chief. You got to get him on the Christmas parade, man. That's
It's beautiful.
Yes, it is.
He was telling me that he had to get Lego parts and colors from Denmark. Which apparently the country where Legos were established.
no, you can tell that. I mean,
It took time.
The it's it means a lot because of the time invested. More, I mean, it's just
Patience.
yeah. Wow. Wow. That's awesome.
Mr. Garcia.
Good evening, Jesse Garcia, 600 block of Lincoln Street. Today I'm here to talk about, again, Rodriguez Park, 'cause many things has not been done since I've been here 3 or 4 times. Last week I went on my electric wheelchair to Rodriguez baseball field on Sheridan. Picked up the trash around the parking lot. I filled up a whole trash bag with a couple of syringes that were there also. Way back then, Rodriguez Park, the parking lot, was a beautiful parking lot. Grass, trees, plants. Now, dirt all over. Nothing is there no more. No, the trees and everything are gone, dried up. Vincent Memorial students are using that parking lot during school hours. I'd like to know why can the city charge Vincent Memorial for a user's fee, collect that money, and beautify that parking lot like it used to be many years ago. It's a really bad need of maintenance. Also, maybe save up some money to buy bleachers for the baseball field, which was burned in arson a few years back. Also, going to the other side of the park, the bathrooms has been locked up for many years. I've been here before with that issue, nothing has been done. The tennis court sprinklers has not been repaired. There's a big section around the tennis court next to the residence that's completely dried, the oleanders, where water does not reach that part. There's a power pole right there, and there's a wooden fence. And on the other side, residential houses. That there is a fire hazard. If you light up a match to those things, they'll light up real quick. The power pole is going to burn the wooden fence and the structures, the residential structures also. A long time ago, I've been here for that same issue, and nothing has ever been done. I don't know if the city's waiting for somebody to light that thing up. We should do something before it happens. Also, leaving the asphalt going inside the baseball field. A couple of years ago, I went to see my son play Beirut, and I saw that there was asphalt, which I thought it was asphalt, but it was just loose gravel. My wheelchair sunk, and that was it. People had to help me push it out. Next day, I got very sick because I got breathing problems with pushing. I got sick pushing out the wheelchair. And I talked to Nick Finley, who used to be here. The next day, he sent in a roller to compact all that, which was pretty good for a while. 2 days ago, I went back to see a baseball game on my wheelchair, and it sunk again. I mean, that park is not handicap accessible like for wheelchairs, and it should be. Now leaving the park, at the corner of Lincoln and Lee, the storm drain, it's very, very small. Good thing we don't have very big storms here, but when we do, when it rains a lot, it clogs up, the water rises, and the water almost reaches the residential doorways. You can't even see the sidewalk. That's something should be done about that on Lincoln and Lee, storm drain. It clogs up real quick. When the park is being irrigated and there's a runoff, all the leaves and everything will go on to the storm drain and block it. I usually go with a stick and poke it so water still could be running. I believe the last thing is, one of the last is, I'd like to thank the City Public Works for the crosswalk that they painted on Lincoln, on Blair and Ethel. That's where my nephew got hit by a car. Before there was no crosswalk, there was no crossing guard either. So the crosswalk is there. The school district put their cones, those new cones they're using out in the middle of the street. And I just got a call from vice principal that there's going to be a crossing guard there that has been approved. It's not there yet, but it's going to be hopefully this month. The other one, I also like to thank the city for taking care of this problem, putting up that security light at Rodriguez Park for the playground for the kids to play safety now. It's very bright. I don't know if city council people have gone to see it. And it's now that children can play in safety without fear of something happening to them. Well,
we have concerns, and I don't know how backlogged we are with parks, but we're jotted down most of those deficiencies, and hopefully we can get to them.
Yeah, like always, they come and they leave, and nothing. They come and they leave. And today, will it be the same?
I hope not.
Because, like I said, especially that all the others are very dry. One of these days, somebody's going to come and lay them up, and it's going to be bad.
Thank you. Thank you for your
All right,
concern.
thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Mr. Dale, Mr. Figueroa, we talked about adopting parks, and we're going to revitalize that moving forward. That was, I believe, several months ago now. Have we made any headway in that? I think that would help out all parks in general, because one, we have limited funds, and two, we have a limited crew. So if we can get families to participate and adopt a park, I think that would go a long way.
I have some comments to make on the parks, but I'll wait till my council comments and touch on it.
At one time, there were assigned, people did volunteer to take care of parks, but it's kind of died down. Anybody else, Ms. Garcia?
Lawrence Gallows?
No, it's too late. It's too late.
To the city council, the mayor, people in the audience. My name is Lawrence Edward Gales, Sr. I first arrived here in Calexico in 1966. I was a student at Jasper Alameda's school. I'm sure that some of the old heads here would probably know exactly where that is. The old 4-H club was Jasper 4-H Club, ran by the Menvilles in those days.
Back in the day.
I graduated from DeAnza Junior High School in '68. I also graduated from Calexico High School in 1972. So basically, I've been around the valley for many, many years, retired from corrections. My reason for coming today is that on July 31st, I filed a Title VI complaint. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and other related laws, which I'm reading from the exact complaint that I filed. Related laws and regulations provide that no person shall, on the grounds of race, color, national origin, sex, age, disability, and income be excluded from participating in, be denied the benefit of, or otherwise be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal funds. The purpose of this form is to assist you in filing a complaint with the city's Title VI coordinator. You are not required to use this form. A letter containing the same information is sufficient. However, the information requested must be provided whether or not this form is used. ADA assistance is available upon request. You may file a complaint against a city contractor, a city sub-recipient of federal funds. All complaints must be filed within 180 days of the occurrence, alleged act, or waiver requested, as indicated below. I didn't come here today to discuss the issues pertaining to this complaint. The first thing I would like to deal with would be finding out who the city Title VI coordinator is. I've checked, I've made several different calls to the city manager's office. I've been directed to call Human Resources. I called them on a number of occasions with no return phone call. At the time of filing this complaint, I had spoke to Mr. Dale, who was very helpful, and said that I would be able to use the form that I have. For people that, and since I've been in the valley this longer period of time, and around Calexico, if there is a city Title VI coordinator, I'd like to find out so that I can pursue this issue with them. Again, I don't want to take the time of the city council to validate or to discuss this issue. I would just like to, at some time in the future, that you would contact me, or may I come back at a later date and reiterate the fact that I'm interested in who the coordinator is, so that I do not violate any rights of anyone. And that is my reason for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dale, between now and that, I don't know, maybe HR and we can come up with someone to take the complaint. Thank you.
Mr. Young Kim?
Good evening. So thank you for waving the hands to me. Yeah, I know you're in purpose you're attacking me. So this council only interest falsely inform the community and attacking the community. And lawyer didn't stop it last time too. And now this time too, lawyer said don't attack the council. There's something wrong there. And city attorney is jumping into when I'm talking some issues, jumping into try to cut me up, instead of someone have to counsel from the council. When they're not action is right, it should be stopping. It's going to be causing some chaos for the later. If the council the behavior is not stopping. I'm glad this is going to be new council pretty soon. So I believe they're going to be a little better educated. And I'm still demand that this council falsely informing the community and defamation of the public person to raise the water bill. And I still demanding June 20th, say by the as council member Escobar said, the June Kim will sign the paper, raise the trash fees. I'm still looking for the copy of the paper. Of course, cannot find it because it's been falsified information. But I'm still demanding answer from the council and city. And the other one is our park and streets still bad conditions. And even we had the major D money, the money is we're spending, giving the way for the big project, like $4 million, and we're gonna give another $2 million. And we issued a bond for giving the money to the big project instead of fixing our road. What happened to our road? Still bad conditions. And now issuing another $12 million for the bond for the major D money again. The bond we pay more than double. The cost of the citizens, not for you guys. The citizens cost. And they're not fixing. They're just conserving the money to waiting for the big money for the big project. What about our citizens? Don't forget the citizens. The city is supposed to be for the citizens. Not for the council, not for their friends or developers. When we have a big enough city, if we have a buying powers, business coming in, we don't have to go back to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Ms. President?
Javier Moreno.
Thank you. Good evening. Javier Moreno, 1305 Brown Court. Mayor Pacheco, council members of the public. I was here about 2 weeks ago to invite the public and the city council to the Calexico School Safety Coalition forum we had this past Thursday. And so I'd like to tell you that it was a success. We had members of the public in attendance. We also had members of the Olga School, the Vincent Memorial High School, and I believe a representative from the Mission School as well. And we had also in the public attendance, we had the Calexico Unified School District. In attendance also, we had Mr. Escobar, we had Mr. Bill Hodge, and I understand Mr. Pacheco, we're out of town on business, so we miss you. But on behalf of the coalition, we'd like to thank you for allowing us to use the facility. And that's all I wanted to say, keep an update on that. Thank you very much, and it was a success.
Good to hear. Good to hear, Mr. Moreno. Okay, no other comments for that? We're going to go to the city council comments. Mr. Real?
Yeah, I'll start. Well, first of all, I wanna. I was feeling a little under the weather, and then I was listening to the city council meeting and saw that there was a proclamation on attendance awareness, and I said I gotta go. So that's why I got here late. But I wasn't feeling too good. I feel better now, but I'm here. I said I can't miss the day that it's attendance awareness, right? I mean, anyways. Last city council meeting, I made a closing comment before we adjourned on something that I think the council now and the incoming council needs to take a look at. I remember when I was elected, one of the first things that we did at the time with the city manager and the people that were on board was actually tour every single park. It was probably the first week or 2 weeks of me being on council. We toured the parks, we toured the water treatment plant, the pretty much most city services. And I don't know if anybody on the council's done it, but I encourage you guys to do it, and the incoming council, same thing. I truly believe that the scope of work of what you guys do is really broad. I mean, you guys go from parks to to finance, to back and forth, and I think the council needs to take it, grab the bull by the horns and maybe start building these subcommittees where 1 or 2 council members are in charge of the parks, another 2 council members are in charge of finance, and kind of split the workload, if you may, so that we can look at these things. Parks is something that, unfortunately, in the city of Calexico, when you see our budgets and you see the possible loss of a police department or a fire department or things of that nature, then parks kind of seem a minor issue when you start looking at not having an ambulance to come and pick you up if your parents or yourself have a heart attack, or God forbid. But it's one of the things that people really look at, outsiders, when they come in. When I go to other cities, Yuma, San Diego, wherever I go, it's like, man, they got nice parks, And so people see that, people look at that. It is important, obviously, on the totem pole. It's Calexico totem pole. It's on the bottom, but slowly but surely we need to bring it up on the totem pole when we get a chance. Since I've been here, I remember one of my first questions was, okay, we have it was like seven parks and then a lot of green areas, right? I said, so okay, where's the group? How many people are working on this? They said, we have one person for the whole city green areas back in the day. I mean, it's just like, how is that even possible? But that's how low in the totem pole parks were. I know that we're doing way better. I know that for a fact. Are we close to what the citizens deserve? No. But is it getting better? Yes. I think that's an important thing to see. With reference to the park adoptions, one of the things that, as a city council and as a city staff, that I notice about our city, about our citizens, about our people, is that if you give them the opportunity, they will cut that slack. They will help. We have a lot of community activists, a lot of people that come. Jesse left, but you give them a rake and shovels, and they'll do it on a Saturday. And that's something that I noticed, that I've set it up here. I'm gonna quote myself, but I've set it up here. It's wrong in a certain way, because as a city, we are charging people pay taxes for this. We're supposed to give them that service, for many reasons, and reasons that many of us up here and the people that are in charge now, David and Miguel, you guys weren't here, and a lot of us weren't here, but for many years, the misspending and everything, and it has us in this position. But the park adoption is extremely important. I know personally parks that have been adopted where the people are cleaning it, taking care of it, doing their work on it, and all they ask for is a sign that says, I'm just gonna say a name, Lopez family adopts this park, and they're happy to do it. But after 3 years, they're like, man, I can't even get a darn sign. I mean, you know what? If the city doesn't care that we're helping later, they get discouraged. I've asked for, where are the signs? I'll give you an example. Kennedy Gardens has these green areas where the cul-de-sacs are, where one neighbor was picked to kind of have the key to the box and open it, and literally they go out there every day. I've actually seen people pull their hose and water themselves, the green areas, and they want to adopt it, and all they want is a little sign there that says, hey, look, the city sees that you're putting your part, and we want to recognize you and your family for doing that, but again, no. You know, so the people will do their part. It's the city that needs to do their part. No blame for anybody, because I can't even, I don't even know who's in charge of that, basically. I mean, I know who's in charge of parks, but not necessarily signage and things of that nature. But I think it's extremely important that that park adoption, you know, not just be brought back if it's not here, but that it be brought back and that it be done right. That, you know, the people that adopt these parks, you know, go through some type of screening process, make sure that they are going to keep up with it. You know, and speaking of Rodriguez Park, you know, that park is almost like kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's something that Vincent Memorial uses on a daily basis. I have seen the parking lot. It is, I mean, it's literally like gravel now. That's how bad it is. And one of the things that I know I'm going past my 3 minutes. Hold on. One of the things is that kind of bothers me is we have these companies, and we're going to make some approvals tonight on some of these things, but I myself have seen approvals here for millions and millions of dollars to granite, aggregate, all these companies. And I know what construction companies make. They make at least 20% profit on what they're charging. You mean to tell me they can't, you know what, we'll cover that for you guys. We'll donate that for you guys. Really? I mean, a couple 100 square feet of blacktop, they can't do that for us when the city is giving them all these funds? I mean, are we even asking them? Are we even telling them, hey guys, help us out here? You know, I'm sure if we have contracts with Waste Management or well, I don't even know who has the trash contract right now, but you know, they can help out a little. You know what I mean? And that's all I'm saying. Are we even asking them to help? Maybe we're not, but why not? You know, let's they're making millions of dollars off the city, off the people here. Can't we ask? You know, and that's it.
10 minutes are up.
Sorry.
Mr. Hodge.
Mr. Garcia is left. Jesse Garcia. City staff, it's really disheartening and embarrassing. That poor gentleman has been coming up here for over a year at least, and the same request, pointing out the same problems of the park, and we haven't done anything. I just want to make a strong recommendation that we do something for that park, so that gentleman and the people there feel good that we're being proactive. Let's make some areas about the park a priority, because it is embarrassing. That poor gentleman's been coming up here for over a year, complaining about the same things, and we haven't done anything. So that's all I want to say.
We'll take it. So, go ahead.
Mr. Real, I echo and support your sentiments.
It
really
behooves
took
us.
10 minutes to say it, but
Behooves us to.
it behooves us to take 3 minutes, but I agree with you.
Hypothetically.
Javier Moreno, you put on a great show. Congratulations. It was much needed in our community. A little
Excellent.
disappointed that more principals from the public schools weren't here. I think we did pull school district folks, but we didn't pull the actual principals who are the leaders of their own institutions. But either way, it was a great event. You had a PhD, not sure if she was a psychologist or a great presentation. So congratulations. A couple quick points. Port of entry. Until we get the 16 lanes for the phase 2, this is really a Band-Aid on a hemorrhaging wound, but it is what it is, and we can't deal, nor do we or the county for that matter. It's political season, so we nor the county have the authority or the power to really fund any type of requests. But what we do control is traffic flowing into Calexico, and that's where we have to think outside the box and figure it out from a logical perspective. People coming out of the port of entry going north in Calexico have the ability at this moment in time to turn left, go straight, left being west, straight being north, and right being east. The vast majority of the traffic is going east. And there is a significant bottleneck happening both on the corner, which would be the southeast corner of Imperial and 2nd Street, as well as at the port of entry when people are leaving. My suggestion is you only have one lane that is turning, in this case, left, which is north on Imperial Avenue. And that is creating, again, the bottleneck. What we need to do, or what I suggest we look at, is that we look at both lanes turning or having the capacity to turn north on Imperial Avenue. I think that is going to help traffic significantly. The other suggestion that I have is that as you're coming north from the port of entry, and I mean, there's times where we're going to have traffic control, there's times where we're not going to have traffic control, depending on traffic, obviously. But when there is traffic control and the gentlemen or ladies are passing cars to go through to the port of entry as they're going south, they should also be allowing cars to turn right or east. And they're currently not doing that, at least not that I've seen. So again, we have to think outside the box. It is a Band-Aid on a hemorrhaging wound, but we control certain aspects of it, so let's try to be a little more proactive on what the city controls. As I've been putting up signs, I've kind of driven along Calexico quite a bit, and I have noticed a few new businesses, and I congratulate new businesses coming up in Calexico. Having said that, the aesthetics of Calexico need to always be accounted for. My in-laws previously owned a business on Imperial Avenue that is no longer in operation or a going concern, but the city was very strict in the aesthetics, specifically on tires and where they left tires, and to make sure that tires were placed in safe areas, not along the sidewalk. As I have been driving more and more through Calexico, I'm noticing that there's more and more tire shops, and there's less and less safety precautions for our public. So while I agree that we should be absolutely pro-business, we should still look at the aesthetics and the safety of our city. And I don't think we're doing a good job from that regard. And again, I echo Mr. Real's comments on parks. I mean, we already have a aesthetically displeasing city. We shouldn't add fuel to the fire. Third, that resolution that Mr. Menville and Mr. Limegruber, and I apologize, there was also a young lady that spoke. I forgot her name. But that three of them spoke. I think it's very important for the future of our valley and for the future of Calexico. So I encourage the city manager to bring that back to council and hopefully have the support of our city council. Fourth item, Rotarians at Work Day. The reason I'm bringing Rotary up, if I've been a Rotarian for the better part of the past decade, if not longer, and we have one day in April, I believe it's in April, where we basically adopt a project, be it clean up a park, paint a fence, paint graffiti over a fence, etc. Again, I'm bringing the park perspective that Mr. Real mentioned. I mentioned right after we had some comments from a committee member. I think it's important that we think outside the box and we do whatever we can to have the community assist us. If we only have one member of our team working parks, well, let's try to get the community involved in one way, shape, form, or the other, be it through nonprofits like the Rotary Club or through the Adopt a Park program. Lastly, and I'm talking about Rotary, so I'll finish up with that. There will be a event, I think I've mentioned it before, Calexico Rotary Club's first one ever, talent show, Saturday, October 20th at the Carmen Durazo Cultural Arts Center. There will be prizes. First place is $300, second place is $200, and third place is $100. There's no official time set. They've been talking about 5, they've been talking about 6, they've been talking about 7. As soon as we get a fixed time, I will definitely bring it to our next city council meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Karaoke?
You want to go for it? Go for it.
No, you're going to do karaoke?
Well, he can do a good Godfather impersonation.
There you go. There you go.
He might win.
Yes, I know.
$300 first place?
I can use them.
We had on 9/11 a short invitation to go to church and afterwards go to a breakfast given by the Knights of Columbus. It was a nice event that I attended to, and they did honor the firefighters and county personnel and PD and sheriffs, and that was a nice little mass for them. We had unveiling committee on October the 16th. We've been meeting for about 3 weeks now, and we're going to unveil the there's a mural here on the fence on north side of the park, right behind the memorial. That's coming, and we're going to unveil that on October the 16th. So the committee's still meeting and looking for donations, and we're trying to hunt down people that were working at the time and help paint the fence. So a little more of that later. Been to a couple of chamber meetings, and they're discussing their events, and they're having a raffle. I believe it's next 28th or 27th, something like that, chamber raffle. That's on that. We had an opportunity to go to the League of Cities this past weekend, and had a chance to talk to and meet other city managers and city mayors and people offering to assist, and they were very generous in giving ideas, and it was a back and forth, and it was a good chance to hear other cities and what they're doing to meet their needs, and they heard a little bit about what our needs were, and we had an opportunity to do that. But other than that, it was a fast 3 days. Okay, we're going to move on. City Manager, anything else?
Yes, Mayor, Mr. Mayor. I don't really like to talk about myself much, but in this case, I feel it's important because on Monday, I received a call. It was questioning my integrity, so I feel I need to address this. I've been an engineer in the Imperial Valley for almost 19 years, and so I've had a chance or an opportunity or an honor, however you want to look at it, to work with almost every local Imperial County engineering firms. And the question came up with regard to one of the firms that's on our agenda today that I have worked with. In fact, I was a part owner at one point, completely divested in 2014, but unfortunately there's still some third-party websites that show me as president, so there was some concern, so I wanted to address that. I have, again, worked with or worked for, at some point, all of these engineering firms in my career, so I just wanted to address that. Also, just to give just a little history of myself, my expertise in the engineering field is in water treatment. My first job out of college was working on a water treatment plant in Westmoreland as a resident engineer, building a water treatment plant. And I've designed and built and put through permitting processes a number of water treatment plants. So this is my specialty: pumping, hydraulics, that kind of thing. So this is my thing. So I just wanted to kind of put it out there. Yes, I'm an engineer. Yes, I've worked with and for all of the local firms at some point, and so I have no financial incentive on any of these firms. In fact, when I was a consultant, I would see in some agencies what I thought was improper spending, and when we saw that, I vowed to myself, if I ever became a public servant, I would treat the city's money as if it's my own and spend it as if it's my own. So I'm very cautious when it comes to spending money, and especially the city's money, and I look at everything. So it's very important to me in terms of integrity. It's of the utmost importance for any public servant to serve the public. So that's my discussion about that. We've had some businesses leaving the city, and I've heard the term ghost town. I don't agree. I know that we have some businesses leaving, and those businesses are not leaving to do anything that has to do with Calexico, but overall economics in the country. And even El Centro will probably start seeing some of that stuff with Sears and so forth. And so I just want to say that I have a great deal of faith in this community, and that those businesses are leaving, but other businesses will come, and we're already seeing a lot of that happen right now. So this city is basically sitting on diamonds. I mean, the the potential of the city is incredible. And when the developers realize that, they're going to be coming. So I'm not that concerned about it. I know that we're going to have more businesses come, and downtown will improve eventually. So we are working on those things. The water rates, we will be bringing the water rates back to the Economic Development Commission and the public committee that we started with probably next week to look at, and bring back to the council on October 3rd for looking at going back to the Prop 218 process. And as you heard, we are looking at every way of reducing the impact to the residents on that. In regards to the Measure D funds, I wasn't quite sure what Mr. Kim was talking about in terms of Measure D and connecting it to parks. But since I've been here, we've spent about $7 million of Measure D funds, and it's all been on the streets in this Calexico. So if you just drive around the Calexico right at this moment, you'll see a lot of dust, a lot of cones, a lot of things are happening. And in fact, when you just heard, we just got the bond, so we'll be doing projects for the next 3 years and hopefully address most of the streets inside of Calexico. That's our goal. So that is that. On parks, you mentioned it, Councilman Real, obviously we all know we're short-staffed. We are doing the best we can with what we've got. And so, you know, we spread the love as much as we can. We don't spend it all on one park or another park. I mean, I know Kennedy Gardens would like us to spend all of our time there, but we try to spread it out, and so that's what we're doing. And you heard the gentleman that spoke, that we have done work on his park. We installed a light, we did some crosswalks. We're doing stuff. It's as much as we can do with what we've got. And so we are continuing to do that, and we will continue to do that. On the traffic situation at the port, we are limited to what we can do at 2nd Street and Imperial because it is Caltrans right away, but we have been in discussions with them already adding a second left turn lane. When Cesar Chavez finally opens up in 6 to 8 months, that will alleviate the issue because most traffic should go straight through Cesar Chavez. So hopefully that will be alleviated at that time. And on the right turns, we do agree that if we can make that happen, we want to. The problem with that issue, and the reason why we're not allowing that during peak times, is because it is a potential traffic safety issue with potential U-turns going on, people coming from the 111 doing U-turns. So we've got some mitigation measures that we're considering. We're going to put some delineators out there so that you have to come at least from the Grand Plaza area, and then so it'll diminish those U-turns. We're waiting for those delineators. So we are on top of that. We're working on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Figueroa.
Yep. Just 10 seconds.
Sure.
And the reason why I brought it up, obviously, it is an issue. It affects the aesthetics and the safety of Calexico, and
Right.
There's a lot of concern out there. There's a lot of angry people. And Christmas time is just around the corner, so it's not
Right.
going to get better. It's going to get worse. And Cesar Chavez will not be ready by Christmas time, as
No.
we all know. So we need to start fixing the problem now versus December 24th.
It's almost that we need 24-hour-a-day traffic controller at that area, and because the left turns into the port, they're not obeying the signal, and so we've got some issues that we're working on, and we're aware of.
Mr. Figueroa, any?
Yes, I have 3 items that I want to share. I always like to come back after having business trips and report back in terms of what it is that we can do as a result of the time that we spent wherever we go throughout the state or out of the state. I do want to share something because, as we know, our council members and our members from the community have raised the issue about parks. We all know that there's a park bond that's going to be voted on in November. But just because money is going to get approved to go for those cities that want to go through a competitive process doesn't mean that that's going to be a guarantee that the money will come down. I do want to share that as part of this trip that we did to the League of Cities, I spent some time speaking with people from the state capitol, specifically from the Water, Parks, and Wildlife Committee on the assembly side. Because we need to be a step ahead. We need to make sure that we go after the specific programs that are tailored for Imperial County and the Coachella Valley. And there is going to be plenty of money. It's not a slam dunk, but if we prep ourselves, even with our limitations in staff right now, ahead of time, we'll have a better opportunity to help tell the story and be prepped to go after those dollars. So that is something that I do want to tell the community that was a huge opportunity for the good in terms of what it is that we want for our city. On another note, one of the things that I also want to share is engaging and building our community here in Calexico is a huge challenge. We know that our community has been, to some degree, not connected or not in constant communication with City Hall. That is one of the things that our city manager and myself strive to address, at least since our time here. And one way to do it is being creative, looking out for ways to attract community to forums where we can all come together, and it serves a dual purpose. You engage community with the city, and as a city employee, you're able to showcase what it is that you're doing. We may not be able to have shovels out there every day, but we can at least tell the story as to how we're getting there. So I'm very happy to share that we have a local business, which is the Calexico Brewing Company, that approached my office, and they said, Miguel, we want to work with the city in putting together an event that will bring not only the community here in Calexico together, but the region as a whole. So I'm happy to announce that there's going to be what they called the Calexico Brewing Company's first annual Oktoberfest. And we're looking to bring, in partnership with Calexico Brewing Company and the Chamber of Commerce and our recreation department here at the city, breweries from Mexicali, from San Diego, and obviously those who are here in our valley. In addition to that, we want to bring and let this be an opportunity for all ages. We don't want to limit this to people of 21 years of age or older, because there are other amenities that we're going to bring to the event so the younger generation can come as well as a family. So I do want to point out we're in the planning stages of that, but I'm very happy to share that this is going to take place at Crummett Park. It's going to take place on October 20th. There is enough people for the Rotary and for the Oktoberfest. This is a situation that we already talked about with all the stakeholders. But I do want to say that
Rotary's going to have to increase the prizes for their first place and second.
We have an ambitious goal of going back to the old days when Crummett Park would get filled, and I think we're on target to make that happen. So then again, we'll be bringing more information on that. The last thing that I want to share is that also one of the things is that we feel it's a priority is making sure that we have enough forums with our community. At times there are many decisions that are made here where people don't feel that they were given enough time to learn about the subject matter. So it's no secret that the city has taken a leadership role in our county when it comes to the cannabis industry. And I personally feel that we need to do more to make sure that we properly inform our community about cannabis in Calexico. So with that said, through the leadership of our city manager, we are looking to host 2 Cannabis Forums events in the city of Calexico in 2 different venues. These are going to occur on October 11th and October 25th. We're looking to have these events after people get out of work around 6 o'clock. We will be putting out the invitation flyers out through our website. We will be also be sharing through different venues here in our city so the public can become aware of this. There are 3 specific things that we want to accomplish by having these forums. We want to make sure that we inform the community what this city has approved in terms of the authorized cannabis commercial activities in Calexico. We want to give them an overall perspective of the laws and the rules that exist in the state of California that enable a city like Calexico, among many others, to do commercial activity of cannabis. At times, we do not see the extent of the industry and how many other cities in the state have a particular activity occurring in their city. And at the end of the day, we want to show the economic benefits that it brings. I mean, we're not shying away from no subject. We want to open the dialogue. We want to inform. And we feel that's something that we owe to the community. So that is my report, Mayor.
Okay, lots of good stuff happening, and hopefully
Just-
we can get.
Let me just, thank the city manager and assistant city manager for the reports. Very well said and informative. I didn't know you were an engineer for 20 years. Well, that's so basically since Carlos was born, right? You look 20. You look 20, dude. I'm sorry.
Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept 5, 6, and 7?
Motion to approve 5, 6, and 7?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Any comments for number 8?
Yes, sir.
Mr. David Romero?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and public. My name's David Romero, 705 Gonzalez Court. And in reference to action number 8, I find it kind of perplexing and confusing that we would even consider to adopt such a resolution at the moment. Since after hearing the presentation that the gentleman mentioned, presented a little earlier in regards to the monies that the enterprise fund needs in order to repair our wastewater plant and our water plant, and seeing here that on action 9, 10, and 11, council's going to go to vote to authorize the city manager to do water pipeline replacement, sewer main replacement, and water treatment plant improvement projects. Yet at this moment, we are considering taking more money out of the enterprise funds when all of that is needed. If not to forget, a couple of weeks ago, it was put up for council to vote to actually raise our utility rates because all the money that is, that we can have is required for the infrastructure to be rebuilt. Yet here now, a couple of weeks later, we're asking to send enterprise funds to our general fund. It's kind of confusing to me, and all I can say is, council members, it's going to be up to you guys. Personally, I would recommend to at least hold off on this at the moment, since our enterprise, our water plants and our wastewater plants do need the most money necessary to be able to start rebuilding all the repairs that need to be done. So, in that, I recommend you, at least not at the moment, adopt this resolution. And in regards to what Council Member Real and Escobar mentioned, is that I'll be more than willing to actually adopt the park whenever it comes up to consideration and vote for council. I just want to put it out there on record that I'm more than willing for my family and I to adopt the park and make this city look more beautiful. So, with that being said, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll make sure to find the biggest park with the most problems and call you about that one.
Mr. John Kim?
Yes. Oh, is there someone else coming up?
My name is John Kim again. I'm glad at least someone paying attention on our tax monies. Number 8, water department $180,000 and the waste fund for the $112,000. This was for the service for our community. We're charging them the lease. At the same time, City of Calexico have several properties leased to the $1. Something wrong down there. Why we should? I've been keep saying several times, we should charge them reasonable rent, reasonable lease, so we can get our general fund get bigger. We don't have money, and we doing the dollars for the lease. And same time, we're going to charge it for our utility business to lease the $180,000 and $112,000. Please think about the community, the citizens. You giving the break for the other entity, and we're charging for our citizens to another over almost $300 Yeah, almost $300,000 to lease. Please, to reconsider on this one, to try to make the work better for the community. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment.
Anybody else, Ms. Garcia?
No more comments?
Mr. Hodge?
I have no problem with this possible resolution to adopt it. It's just I was worried about it. I just want to make sure, and I just want to hear it stated, how legal is this?
Mr. Dale, could you answer that one, or
I could
Mr. Campos?
Yeah, we obviously looked at the item, make sure that it was sound legally. We have Prop 218, Prop 26, and be compliant. And just for background purposes, the city's wastewater treatment facilities and water facilities currently sit on land, total about 28 acres, that are assets of your general fund. And as such, because of that, what we're doing here is, and there's a study here, market study prepared by Urban Futures to document what's the lease value of that, and that's where we're at those figures. So because the facilities are sitting on general fund land, it's basically a lease payment for the use of the land.
Is there precedence to this?
Yes, I mean, in terms of a lot of times, like if we do an analysis to see what sort of assets are reliant on general fund services, you allocate the proper amount. Here it happens to be lease. Here it happens to be the real property. Another way to put it, say if these facilities were on private property, these funds would be paying this amount of lease revenue to a private property owner. Here, they're general fund assets, and that's why the money is being transferred from these two enterprises over to the general fund. And to support the amount of $108,000 for the water enterprise fund and $112,000 for the wastewater, like I said, there's a market study prepared by Urban Futures to support where these numbers came from. And they looked at properties within the area, zoning, and to arrive at those numbers.
And these would be an annual fixed amount?
It's a lease payment, correct.
Good for the general fund.
Mr. Dale, I believe you were not the city manager at the time. I believe Mr. Villa was the city manager at the time, but I do recall specifically stating that everything should be on the table. We can no longer afford to do $1 leases. We've done that in the past, and we've done that historically for decades. And we give preferential treatment to X, Y, and Z, and not to A, B, C. And one, we can't afford it, and two, it isn't fair. So again, this has been brought up in the past. In fact, I'm going to call it a year ago, there was a listing brought to the city council on specific leases, and some were at market rates and some were at 99 cents per year. So again, we really need to dig deep, review this, and if we're on a year-to-year at $1, we need to really review this because it's unfair and we can no longer afford to do that. We need to charge market rates for every city property that we have. I mean, if we're not, it needs to be fully justified. And I highly doubt that this council will agree to continue with $1 a year type of rates because it just does not benefit our general fund, which is in desperate need of revenue.
It behooves us.
Absolutely, we agree with that. And one of the $1 lease but we have to honor our existing leases, obviously, but one of the ones that is $1 is moving out and will be relocating, so we'll be able to charge the correct.
Any comments, Mr. Fair?
I will, is there someone going to make a motion
Is
on
there
it?
going to be any other comments, Mr. Dale, on this issue?
Unless you have questions.
Do we have a motion?
No.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Okay, I will second that motion for discussion. Just to give my take, and there's once a meeting I attended, I believe it was a school board meeting, where there was it wasn't in the city, but there was a member up there that he said something that kind of stuck to me, and he said, you know what, whether you're for or against something, up here you're a body, you're a team, And when you know that the majority are supporting something, or it's almost behooves you to support it, even if you have some convictions on it. And I just want to publicly state why I am. And I know I'm going to piss off my city manager here, but we already have in every yearly budget that the city does. There's some monies already allocated from enterprise fund to pay for many things that the city uses. For example, part of city manager's salary comes from enterprise. Part of the majority of the management, yeah, and I'm not sure what the percentage is, if it's 20, 30, 40, even 50%. I've seen as high as 50%. That's something that's already allocated every year. That means that enterprise is the rich uncle in this city, basically. And there's a reason why that fund has so much money. And I've said it before, and I'm not going to repeat it why, but I think basically there's money in that account. Just put it to you that way. I feel that this is a type of kind of double dipping on that. We're stealing from Peter to pay Paul. Does the city need it? Yeah. I mean, the city general fund needs it. There's no ifs, ands about it. But this is what you call, ladies and gentlemen, creative financing. Very creative, to the point where I'm gonna speak on behalf of legalities. Is it legal? Yes, according to our city attorney. Is it ethical? That's the other question. You're taking money from a fund, a city fund, and you're subsidizing the general fund from it by paying itself rent. That means that what's next? The PD starts making some money. Now they pay us rent, or the fire department, or we have a lot of things that don't pay us rent. The chamber, I think there's the chamber uses a property. There's properties on First Street. I believe is I'm not sure if the methadone clinic. I'm not sure exactly everything, but there's I know we need it, but I just feel that it's stealing from Peter to pay Paul, basically. And I know that it's almost not an option for us because our general fund is hurting that much. But even though I will support it if the majority of the council supports it, I still have convictions about it. So.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of city tenants, and there's multiple, not just the two that you mentioned. But I mean, should the chamber pay a rent? Should the methadone clinic pay rent? Again, we need to have an even playing field. It can't be ABC paying and XYZ not paying. It's got to be clear and across the board. And again, the general fund is significantly handicapped, and you know this quite well. We all know this quite well. So again, we need to just create a level playing field, or everybody is paying market rates for city property.
I agree.
Well, I think we've already bounced this around, so we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Motion and second.
Mr. Hodge, you second it?
No, I had the motion.
And Mr. Leal seconded it. All those in favor of adopting number 8?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to number 9. Anybody speaking to number 9? Okay. Do you want to address that one, Mr. Dale? Right on number 9?
Sure. Okay, so we have a number of things, the next 3 items, but this particular one is regarding the water treatment plant. Currently, our permit requires the water treatment plant to be operated, have an operator present 24 hours a day. And we're the only city that in the county that they require that. City of El Centro is 8 hours. I think City of Brawley is 20 hours. The reason why we're 24 hours is because we don't have the proper infrastructure to automatically run the water treatment plant. And so what this would do, this is a preliminary engineering that would determine what is going to be required in terms of infrastructure to get the water treatment plant up to the grade so that we can reduce the hours, and that's what this is for. It also has a part of it to change or reduce the chlorine gas that we have there. In lieu of the chlorine gas, it will be liquid chlorine. The problem with we got several problems with the gas, but the issue with the gas is the hazard. It's a hazardous material, and if we ever have a leak or anything like that, they have a potential of having to evacuate half the city. And so we want to look at what our options are. So this is going to be looking at and giving us recommendations with regard to the chlorine, which is a disinfectant of the water. So this is a pretty big project, and we have it before you for discussion.
I want to make a comment, Mayor, if I may.
Yes, yes.
And 9, 10, 11 are pretty much the same. Just kind of repeating different water treatment projects that need to happen. And one of the questions I have on 9, specifically because it impacts union workers, is a meet and confer issue with voting on this? Do we need a meet and confer with them on that, or is that not? Is that a managerial right?
This is a study only.
Okay.
If we were planning on making a change, yes, then that would at that point.
But the study is being done so that possibly there could be a change in the future. So
Yes.
there would
Yes.
need to be a meet and confer with that. Okay. I've been going through the. This is the only thing that throws me off, and I don't know why this happens, but I just feel that when you go out for bid and you have a list of companies that apply and bid on the projects, we have a bid here that's like within $60 one from another, but we're supposed to pick the lowest price. I mean, we're picking the highest price in one of them, and then one in the middle, and it almost seems like one's going to Holt, one's going to Dynamic, and one's going to BJ. Like we just kind of like you take that one, you take that one. We spread the wealth on there.
Spread the wealth.
And that's okay, but if you're the lowest bid, you're the lowest bid. I mean, again, why go out for bid if we're not going to pick the lowest bid in the first place? And that's my comment to my colleagues here and to the public. It's not the first time I see it. It happens a lot in government, and it's like, well, this one was lower, but we feel that the highest one is the better company. Well, then why even go out for bid? And that if you allowed them to bid on this project, that means that they do the scope of work and do have the qualifications and experience and the right people to do the job. So why are we not picking the lowest price? And again, are we opening ourselves to a lawsuit from one of these companies that says, hey, well, I was the lowest bid. Why didn't I get it? And that's all I'm saying. I don't need like a huge information on that, but I just would hope that we go with the lowest price, because I mean it's the people's money. So.
I would like to, if I could, address that. And I just mentioned it earlier. My 19 years of experience. When it comes to professional services, you don't necessarily go with the lowest price. You have to look at in terms of what is being offered in the scope, what the qualifications are, and in this case, we felt that the price difference didn't match what the qualifications that we're bringing to the city. And I might mention also that
isn't the RFP the same for everybody?
It's the same for everybody, but remember, they're not bringing the same qualifications. And so what we did was we're trying to use our as-needed list of engineers, which in the as-needed list was, I think, approved by council in 2016, something like that, and I think it extends till 2019, something to that effect. So we prepare a brief scope, we email it to all of the, regardless if we think they're qualified or not, they can bring back a proposal showing their qualifications on that particular item. Our as-needed list does not necessarily mean that every single company is qualified to do that project.
So when we go to RFP for these projects, are you telling me that the only people that can bid on them are the ones on that list?
On the list is when we use our on-call list. These are all our local firms that are on that list.
Wow, that seems kind of I know, I remember there being a list of approved
That's it.
engineers, but I don't remember it being completely closed only to them.
We're trying to use that list
I would-
primarily because they're all our local firms.
And I'm all for keeping it local, but at the same time, if somebody from San Diego comes and does it at 20% lower price, then, I mean, we need to go with the lowest price.
When
Obviously,
professional services doesn't work like that at all. It's
Attorney-
not like a contract, when you're bidding out a project for a contractor, they all have to meet these highly specified things that they have to do.
There are other factors in.
When it comes to professional
Okay,
services,
but
you
who-
don't get the same from.
Let me ask you this: Who picks who should be the company to get that bid?
And so our Public Works Department reviews them,
so
and then they send it
so-
to me, and I look at it and approve.
So, but the council doesn't have to go with that. It can go with any of the other ones.
Sure.
So basically, the council can go with the lowest bid.
Of course, but this is staff recommendations, but
And the recommendations, and again, that's just all I'm saying. The recommendations are, if the city's recommending a certain company that's more expensive, then it's almost like, why bring it to the council? But, I mean, again, I'm just saying, money is an issue in the city, a huge issue, and if we're not taking the lowest bid, I feel we're doing a disservice to the community. I mean, that's, because again, you're an engineer, you have a PE stamp, so does the other guy. Hey, you guys both obviously took the state test and passed it, so, yeah, you might know more about water treatment, and he might know more about civil, but hey, buddy, you're bonded. You have if you take a job as an engineer or as any profession, you better make sure that you can do that scope of work, because if not, it's your license on the line, right?
True.
Sure. So again, that's what I'm saying. Holt, Dynamic, BJ. I think I saw another company there. I mean, I feel we go with the lowest bid. That's just my opinion. But again, council, it's the city's money.
Well, here's the thing.
Not ours.
Yeah, we've got a city manager that's done extensive work in this area, and staff is recommending that we go with this company. So along with the expertise of our staff and our city manager, I'm going to back up the city manager and staff.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Hodge?
Mr. Dale, for years we've used chlorine gas. Is that correct?
Yes.
Has it been proved to be extremely effective?
The
in
chlorine
cost
gas,
savings?
there's no question, it's more effective and even a little cheaper. But in terms, where do you put the cost on the potential hazard? And in Palo Verde, one of their gas chlorine cylinders erupted, and it caused enormous damage and potential health issues with some of the operators.
I know this is a study, but do you know specifically what would be substituted for chlorine gas?
Well, that's in the study, but most likely it's sodium hypochlorite, which is kind of like a bleach solution, so it's liquid instead of gas.
Have we done any homework on the difference between those two? And obviously, we have a trihalomethane problem in this city.
Correct.
Is that gonna be affected? In other words, is chlorine gas more effective in reducing trihalomethane?
Yeah, that's where I'm leading to.
Trihalomethane.
I said it first.
Are actually.
I said it first.
Let me just finish, Mandy, and then you can move.
The gas chlorine, as was mentioned before, may be a little more effective, which means that it causes more TTHMs.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
It's just a little more effective?
It could be considered a little more effective because of its gas, but at the same time, a lot of the local agencies, and not even just local, but outside this county, are moving to.
I just need to hear you say it, because I've had some constituents tell me that the other choice, it's so diluted that it's not effective, and it's more of a cost.
And it may be a little more costly, but like I said, in terms of the potential hazards to the community, right now I know we have chlorine scrubbers and everything in that, but if one of those gas cylinders were to erupt, we'd have to evacuate half the city. So.
Okay.
This is just a study to tell
Which
us.
half,
Right.
do you know? I'm just.
The west half.
Let's
So-
just go back.
I had a joke, but
I had,
My half, no, let's get it fixed.
I have a couple comments real quick.
Yeah.
I'm a numbers geek, so when I get that report once a year from the water department, I'm like, I know I'm a geek. I admit I like numbers, and I look at that report. I look at the parts per billion or parts per million, depending on what that specific issue is, or that specific mineral or pollutant is. And I think it's important, and I'm going to touch on Mandy's comments in a couple seconds, but Mr. Reals, I'm sorry. Is liquid chlorine as effective at keeping those chemicals or cleaning those pollutants from our water? Is it as effective than the current gas that we have?
Absolutely. If it weren't effective, then the state of California Department of Water Resources would not allow it. And most of these, like I said before, our water agencies are moving toward this liquid gas, or liquid chlorine instead of the gas.
So in a nutshell, if I get that report a year from now, assuming this were to go through, and the numbers would be basically a spitting image of each other, would that be a fair assessment?
What numbers are we?
The breakdown that you have to send by law. to
Basically,
each-
they're water quality numbers.
The disinfection, I mean, if you get any bacteria in the water, then that would be a problem.
Well, I'm talking in general, the general numbers, because it's probably, the list is roughly, what, 80 long, 80 components?
There's a
long?
printout that comes to the house.
Chlorine does not affect those. The only thing that chlorine does is it disinfects the water. It doesn't affect all those constituents. In fact, except it may add to the THMs. But it does not affect copper. It doesn't affect. All it does is disinfect.
Okay.
Doesn't affect.
The second comment is, and I think the general public isn't aware of the numbers that we're talking about for these three items, which are items 9, 10, and 11. And I just want to give you the full disclosure. Item number 9, the difference is $1,560. So
Between what, sir?
between contract A, which is 105,440, and contract B, which is 107. So if you do the math, it's 1.5%. In realistic numbers, it's, and I'm doing quick math here, $1,560. Is it material? No. Item number 10, it is the lowest bidder. Item number 11, it's not the lowest bidder by $62.50. So the lowest bidder was
That's a tank of gas. That's a tank of gas.
79.5, and the recommendation from staff is 79.5, 62.50. Is it material? No.
The difference is not that great.
Can I, as far as for our city attorney, just reference this? It's okay to take the higher bid.
Correct. For professional services, you're not bound by the lowest offer. If it was a public works contract, by law, we would have to issue it. But for professional service, you look at experience, quality, a lot of the items that the city manager mentioned. It is legally appropriate to include those.
So we can't get sued from the other company. The other company cannot sue us.
Let's call for the question number 9.
They don't have. I mean, they could always sue, but there wouldn't be much of a grounds probably.
Does he have one? Oh, for 9? Okay.
He wants to speak on 9.
9. Did we make a motion?
He just
Not yet.
This
Not
is
yet, okay.
It's a little late, though, no, Mr.
No.
Campos?
Yeah.
For public comment. No, it sounds late.
For the item?
Item 9.
Mr. Kim?
Thank you for giving me a chance. As I believe we need to think a little more the future of the city of Calexico. We're spending a lot of money, $53 million on our capital improvements. Of course, some of them, they're pipeline, but we're spending big money of our plant. Is there any chance we can think about, instead of fixing the plant we have, build another one in the eastern side of the water tank? So we raising the capacity so city can grow for the future. Think about it. So our council members supposedly think about our futures too. So my recommendation is, if we're spending a lot of improvement of the plan, why not? We've been here until now, so why we not maintaining a little while, a little more for the an extra funds, but if we spend money to, even the small size, to new one in the eastern side, so we can ready for the growing for the eastern side of the future Calexico. And when I was trying to pushing to the annexation to the east, big issue was capacity for the city. So why not do spending? And also what I believe the CBP requesting the water from us. So think about it, please.
That's actually an item that I was discussing today with this consultant as part of their scope to do this, to do exactly that. And that's a good idea because for two reasons. We need to bring a pipeline to that, all the way to that east side tank. And we're talking 3 or 4 million if we do that from our water treatment plant. And also we need to expand we're already showing that we need to expand our water treatment plant. So to the tune of 5.5 million, which was shown in the water treatment water rate study. So we want to look at that. Do we want to spend 3 million or 4 million bringing a pipe and expand our treatment plant there, or build a new water treatment plant on the east side? It's an excellent idea. We're looking at it, and we want to look at more of that. So very good.
Make a motion to approve item. Can we do 9, 10, 11, or do we have to do them separate?
You know, I do it separately just
Okay.
because there's
Make a motion to approve item 9.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to approve item 10.
Second.
Aye. Make a motion to approve item 11.
Wait.
We're on
Wait,
10.
no.
We're on 10.
Or in 10, okay.
Mr. Dale,
Yes.
any comments on 10?
Are we back on 10 again? Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
I went already to 11. So, are there any questions?
No,
No,
just
not really.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Good?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Got two left.
You're gonna make a
Is
motion
it
for
11?
I'll make a motion for item 11.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pass. Item 12. Playground equipment for Lova Park.
Yeah, this is
CFD is going to cover the cost?
Yeah, this is just to finalize the project. What happened here was that the measurements, the square footage for that flooring that was put in was a little short. And so when they actually did it in the field, the measurements showed it was a little more. So this is to finish up the project.
I'll make a motion to approve it. I just want to make a real quick comment, so we can get out of here early. This California Communities, just so that people know, is something I'm not very fond of. Basically what it is it cuts through it's very easy for the city because they've already kind of, they go through a bidding process statewide, but here's the problem. You have companies that are bidding, in LA, or even from San Francisco, which is probably the most expensive city in the country, maybe, or close to it. And I can tell you that I'm not fond of it because I think we should take bids that are hopefully from local entities that can do the same job. This here is a little more specific. I don't think we have a company locally that does games and stuff like that. But I think it's a very lazy way of the city. Just say, we're going to take more communities and just get that one and that's it. We're not going to bid it. So again, I will make the motion to approve it because it's basically it's already done. We're going to do not pay them. Yeah. So this is kind of weird that it's coming to us now versus. Again, I'm going to say it again. This company that's doing this should have. They did the bid. They should have measured it right, and there's no reason why we should do a $30,000 change order. I'm making a big deal about $60 for a gas tank, and here's $30,000 for something that. Hey, sorry company, if you bid and you bid it wrong, then that's your problem. I mean, that's I think the way it should be. But I'll make a motion to approve it.
I have a comment as well. I like your comment, Mr. Dale, about taking care of the city's funds and like if they were your funds. And this is something similar to what Mr. Real is basically stating as far as, wow, it's not my money, let's go ahead and spend an extra $27,000. It's not coming over general fund, who cares? And we need to be a little more what's the word here? Humble, apprehensive, proactive, combination of all three. I don't know. You're the English teacher.
Yeah.
But it behooves us to be a little more proactive when it comes to this type of funding, even though it's not our general fund money. It's taxpayer money, bottom line.
And I have seen RFPs where they actually they'll actually state in the RFP, you know, there's no change orders or a percentage. I think the city should look at making a policy where there's no more than 10% or 5% of a possible change order, because I think it's ridiculous. They low bid it, and don't worry about it. We'll do a change order for $200,000 later and just make it up. Then why do we even go out to RFP? But there's a motion. Do I have a second, I guess? Or
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The parents would be really glad that we're doing this, and they'd
Future agenda
They'd be
items.
the first ones to say, let's do it.
Motion to adjourn.
Future agenda items, Mr.
Future
Hill?
agenda.
Nothing.
Mr. Hodge?
I know we have a lot of fires to put out, and we're on a broad scope of work here, but I would like to see strongly urge that the city staff to devise action plans for downtown and the parks. It's not enough to have a vision if you don't have a plan down on paper, or at least a tentative plan. I'm not asking for anything next time, but to start working on an action plan. We seem to be pretty well organized and focused on the public works. I'd like to see that kind of concentration or focus for downtown and the parks, even though it may take a long time. You know, and it's a tentative, it's a living document or plan. But we need something down on paper, at least for my indulgence, my possession, so I have a bigger picture. Thank you.
Mr. Fiora, you might want to address some of your plans for downtown. Just kind of, it'd be a good reminder of what you're working on for downtown that is not being neglected, besides the potential closure of First and Rockwood between First and Second, but also to address Mr. Hodges' concerns.
Action plan.
Mr. Dale, the issue with the alleys and with our company, our trash company, are they still working with us and utilizing those ingredients to spray and get the smell out?
Yeah, so Friday night will be another, we're doing it once a month, so Friday night this week, we'll be doing it once again.
Oh, that's a good deal.
And also, we do have plans to bring these issues of downtown to what we call our PRC, our Project Review Committee, which encompasses all our department heads, to come up with some some ideas to figure it out. We heard about the gates, that's a potential item. There's all kinds of things that we can do, but maybe come up, like Mr. Hodge said right now, a plan of attack. 1 year goals, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, something like that.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order?
Again, I'm going to reiterate the fact that I think we need to build on the Adopt a Park campaign. I think we've pushed it to the back burner long enough. I think we have enough concerned citizens where we can populate each and every park. In fact, we might even get 2 families per park. Makes it easier on everybody, and maybe they'll be even better maintained. So again, we got to put it on the front burner, not the back burner.
It was in place, and I think there might still be some families still doing it, but I don't know. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's go home. Thank you.